This is me taking a picture of you,
taking a picture of you. This is us going in to see Christy Clark at the Capri Hotel, where she's meeting with an Enbridge rep right now to talk about how well they're going to take care of any cleanup when a spill occurs.
I'm sure they can clean it up.
Not if, when. They did so well up north with the Exxon Valdez, and they did so well in Kalamazoo, Michigan, and they're doing so well in Wisconsin and in the Gulf of Mexico. And is there any more we can talk about? Well, probably we could go on all day talking about oil spills.
Is it true that Enbridge had one major spill every day for the last 5 years?
I don't know, but we can look that up and go into it, because that's what we have the internet for.
You know it, man. So what we're doing is this, which is, hey, look at that. Check it out. Hey, is that cool or what?
That is cool.
So we're styling. Make sure that you stay tuned. This should be interesting.
Ah, yes, and as we head into another election in the Kelowna area, we are going to jump in on Christy Clarks' nightmare. I'm Darren Howard.
And I'm Robert Nisbet.
Yes, indeed.
Didn't we just have an election? But Christy lost her seat.
Yeah.
So we have a seatless premier.
Yes. Our buttless premier is currently in Kelowna this day, July the 5th, 2013. Hopefully we got video of that. But let's run this.
There's that old adage, it takes money to make money. Here, the premier in Beijing learning that Chinese investors were ready to spend $1.3 billion in BC's mining sector. The premier's office has an annual budget of about $9.3 million. That's to pay leases, salaries, transportation, and everything else. For example, to get over to Asia, the premier spent almost $12,000 on 2 flights on Lufthansa Airlines business class. Here are some of the expenses listed from the Comptroller General's annual report. 2 outings at Bishop's Restaurant in Vancouver cost taxpayers almost $2,300. 1 outing at the Blue Water Cafe, just under $2,100. 2 visits to the Ferris Oyster Bar cost almost $3,300. The Premier's office used Helijet 120 times for a cost of just under $36,000. The expense report doesn't say specifically what this money is spent on, and that is a problem for the Canadian Taxpayers Federation.
The amazing thing about these expenses, and we've been talking about a lot this past week, is that they're shrouded in mystery, but it's all self-inflicted by these politicians. All they have to do is post the receipts for everything they charge taxpayers online for all of us to see, and then we'll make the judgment call.
That's exactly what they do at City Hall in Toronto, where you can see, for example, Councillor Vincent Cristani in office supplies bought 6 black ink cartridges for $188.22, which begs the question, just how exactly was $3,100 spent at a BC Lions game? All those news conferences racked up a bill of $4,200 from Van Hout Coffee. One of the bigger hotel bills goes to the Watermark Beach Resort in Osoyoos at a cost to taxpayers of $18,600. TELUS raked in $25,000, but credit cards were busiest by far with Rogers at almost $95,000 for 75 employees. The Premier's office says if you compare oranges to oranges, here's how the credit card bills add up. Under Clark, her office, which now includes the Intergovernmental Affairs Department, charged roughly $475,000 to credit cards. That's up considerably from the year earlier when Gordon Campbell's credit card bill was $368,000, but still below the Olympic year bill of $506,000.
You know, I like it when the facts come out.
I wonder how much they were spending on erotic material from Rogers.
Yes, indeed. If they actually provided receipts like we do when we file our taxes, but of course their government, they're entitled to, write off anything that they want.
And of course, when Christy got elected, the first thing she thought she'd do was give everybody a big raise.
Really?
But that didn't look so good, so she had to do this.
The move to hike the top pay range for political staffers here at the legislature was made quietly just after the election. In most cases, staffers would get $1,000 or a couple of $1,000 increase, but in one case, it actually meant the potential for a 60% pay hike. This after a campaign where the Liberals promised fiscal austerity and government belt tightening. Well, after a public outcry, the Premier has been forced to reverse her decision, admitting the hikes were a mistake.
Rather than the budget saving or the budget being underspent by $100,000, which is where we would have, where we were yesterday, we are going to underspend the budget by $200,000, which is, I think, a significant savings, and I hope much more consistent with my determination to make sure that British Columbians know we are going to control government spending come hell or high water.
So all of the salary levels go back to what they were before the election. None of the pay hikes will take effect, with one exception. Christy Clarks' own Deputy Chief of Staff will get an increase over what her predecessor made, but not as much as first planned. Christy Clark justifies the move, saying that this person is now doing the job that used to be done by 2 people. For their part, the NDP can't help but wondering if the ongoing by-election race in Kelowna might have factored into this decision. Stephen Smart, CBC News, Victoria.
So there she is talking about reining in spending.
Yeah.
And not talking about the fact that banks make money up from nowhere.
Well, yeah, because it's all imaginary anyway. And I mean, does she just pull these numbers out of her hair?
I don't know. Whoever's giving her that, friend's haircut should please, come on. At any rate, I'm not superficial. I'm not going to make fun of her hair or the way that she looks like a deer caught in the headlights. But we are going to talk about the facts.
Well, yeah.
Okay, and the fact is, she is pro-pipeline.
She is pro-pipeline, but she tries to pretend she's not.
Okay, so while she's pretending she's not in Kelowna this July the 5th, well, let's do a little background, yes?
Yes.
She once described their meeting as frosty, but differences seem to be put aside, as Premier Christy Clark was all smiles and hugs during a press conference with her Alberta counterpart, Alison Redford, in Kelowna. Pipeline prospects set the two apart in the past, but this time it appears moving oil from Alberta to BC was not discussed.
There are regulatory processes in place, and Premier Clark has very clearly set out how British Columbia participated in that process. We respect that. That's what exactly should happen during a regulatory process. So for us to sit there and spend a lot of time debating on what that actually means at this point in time, I don't think that's entirely productive.
We support economic development in British Columbia. We support resource development in British Columbia. And, on liquefied natural gas as an example, those projects have been working hard and are getting very close to meeting all the 5 conditions that have been in place. So to me, the 5 conditions don't change. They haven't changed. But I think that they are conditions that resource development projects can meet, and we're proving in British Columbia that they can be met.
Clark claims today was not the time to debate pipelines, despite the recent oil spill from a Kinder Morgan pipeline near Merritt. Both women will also be attending the Western Premiers Conference in Winnipeg on Monday. Jen Zielinski in Kelowna for Castanet News.
But there's proving that, democracy is a joke. She's not our premier. She didn't even win in the election.
She is seatless.
Okay, she did, this butt-free premier of ours, okay, who actually does not have any popularity in this province, is ramming this pipeline through as fast as she can.
And her previous riding was Point Grey in Vancouver.
And she
How
lost
right-wing is that?
She lost that to the NDP? My goodness. At any rate, well, actually, they couldn't rig that election.
No.
But, if we had evidence of maybe of another oil spill to point out towards her.
Enbridge just can't get a break.
The legacy that this company leaves behind is very, very positive.
It's a slick corporate video that portrays Enbridge as the saviors of the Kalamazoo River in Michigan, though the details of the company's failure in handling the United States' worst inland oil spill are glossed over. There is no mention of the pointed criticisms from the U.S. National Transportation Safety Board, who even went so far as to compare it to the Keystone Cops. And now word of another Enbridge spill on Friday, this time in Wisconsin, has British Columbians who were opposed to the Northern Gateway project shaking their heads. Christy Clark has been making headlines this week in her ongoing spat with Alberta's premier. Yesterday, she walked away from a proposed national energy strategy at a meeting of premiers in Halifax. But Clark's continuing demands for BC's fair share of the Northern Gateway pie have outraged the First Nations. An alliance of 5 First Nations from the interior says it is unacceptable for the premier to play Price is Right with their lands.
I think we're going to say no till forever, until Enbridge can prove that they can have a safe pipeline. Then we can talk. But until then, I think when we say no, that's just what we mean.
The First Nations want the premier to sit down with them and hear their concerns in person. That doesn't appear to be on Christy Clark's agenda anytime soon, but NDP leader Adrian Dix leaves tomorrow to meet with the coastal First Nations and get a first-hand look at the proposed oil tanker route.
these are decisions that will take place and have an impact over decades. And the government essentially is playing short-term politics. I mean, the Premier had a different position 2 weeks ago, a different position 2 weeks before that, and probably would have a different position after an election.
And because we have the internet, we'll remember that originally the government said, we have all First Nations approval right across the board. And then I don't know more happened.
Yeah, I know. Exactly. They keep saying stuff that turns out to not be completely truthful.
You're not implying that they're lying or anything?
No. They're just giving us the least untruthful answer.
In my opinion, they're a bunch of bald-faced liars. You guys are bad people. You know what? They didn't learn in kindergarten how to be real people.
So Christy Clark only wanted 5 conditions for Enbridge.
Okay.
Well, there may be a few more.
Okay.
Today, Environment Minister Terry Lake announced the province will be demanding more details from a panel reviewing the proposed Northern Gateway pipeline. The government wants to know what types of safety measures Enbridge will take if oil tankers are allowed to travel through the Douglas Channel near Kitimat. BC will focus its questions around spill prevention and response and how much liability Enbridge and its partners will take in the event of a spill. How can we trust this company?
Well, I think that's a fair question, and that's why we have processes in place for them to convince British Columbians and the environmental assessment process that they are capable of doing the things that we are demanding of them.
Ultimately, this company made safety promises to the people of Michigan. Ultimately, this company made safety promises to the people of Wisconsin, and they failed miserably in both cases. What makes you think you and your government are going to extract any sort of safety requirements out of them that they can actually promise they're going to do?
Well, that's why we need to ensure that the regulations for Transport Canada, for the Canadian Coast Guard, the capacity and the regime that is mostly on the marine side under the jurisdiction of the federal government, we need to know that that is solid.
BC is also demanding Ottawa update its marine laws and increase funding for a cleanup to the tune of $3 billion. That's more than double than what's available now. Enbridge today said it was confident it can meet the safety demands of the BC government. With billions of dollars at stake, though, many worry the federal government will push the pipeline through under the guise of national interest.
There's that government again, the stupid statement. Regulations work, restraining orders don't work, regulations won't work with Enbridge.
What I want to know is, did Christy Clark have to replace her environmental minister?
Yeah, I know. Who is this guy?
I don't know. He looks new to me.
Yeah, he's got that deer in the headlights look, too. By the way, Fractional Reserve Lending. We got time. Let's run this.
At $214 a second, BC's $57 billion debt is continuing to grow. And what better way to make British Columbians more aware of the load than to take that number on tour around the province? But this debt can't just be wiped away overnight.
There was a lot of talk in the election campaign of a debt-free BC. Very good talk about it, but we're nowhere near being debt-free. In fact, we're nowhere near even stopping the clock. So we want to make sure people understand how much we owe. And then we want to talk to them about what government's priorities should be.
The clock is getting a lot of attention during its stop in Kelowna as people pose to take pictures with the debt load that's expected to top $69 billion by 2016. And if that $57 billion number scared people, the debt per person in BC is $12,405 and climbing.
This is specifically government debt. So this is the government spending money on our behalf, some of it for very worthwhile projects like hospitals and schools, some of it to balance the books and wasteful spending. Not all of it is some sort of nefarious evil debt.
The clock will tour 30 cities in 2.5 weeks, with the final leg finishing in Prince George. Jen Zielinski in Kelowna for Castanet News.
And all of that debt is made up from nowhere. There's no gold backing it up. It's called Fractional Reserve Lending.
And it's mostly interest anyway.
So those bankers are scamming us. They've got a debt club going around not explaining the way the economy works, but we've got the explanation here. I'm Darren Howard.
And I'm Robert Nisbet.
We're urging you to look up Fractional Reserve Lending, the fiat money system, and check out some of our specials on it because we're covering it because lamestream news isn't. Please check our facts. Make sure you use your intellect and use the internet because apparently big news doesn't have it. We're back with more. And remember our municipal sustainability program right here at Radio Free Canada.